America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The boroughs comply with the notice provisions of the Sunshine Law by adopting prior to January 10th of this year a resolution prescribing the date, time, and location of all regular meetings of the commission. This meeting is one of the meetings listed in such resolution. Copies of the resolution were prior to January 10th filed with the borough. Okay.
I need a motion to file the minutes. So moved.
Second.
And a motion to file the following reports: tax collector, municipal court.
Moved. Second.
We have the second reading and public hearing of bond with 1655
Let's do them both together.
and 1656. The construction of a public works building and construction of an emergency response building.
So this is we've had a bunch of meetings about this. This is our police and fire facility. This is the public hearing on these ordinances. So anyone like to bring anything before the commission, this is your opportunity to do so. Anyone? Okay, Kyle?
Mayor Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Leonard? Yes. Commissioner Lewandowski?
Yes.
And that's approving both 1555 and 56.
Yes.
And we have the following resolution, appointing police officers, full-time police officer Jamie Connect, special police officer Lucas Bruce, and special police officer Ryan Morsey.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We also have a resolution appointing
Well,
Robert.
let's do the swearing in for those first. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll do the swearing in. Okay, Chief.
Jamie, you and your brother.
Jamie Connect, Jamie.
You know? Is it Kenny?
Here, no, stay right here. You guys, over here. Okay, now place your left hand on the Bible. Repeat after me. I, Jamie Connect,
I, Jamie Connect,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly
that
swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments
and to the governments
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform all the duties of the Borough Council
for the Borough of Collinsville,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Jamie, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Quick found, everybody can come on up. Right here. All right. You guys slide out real quick. Okay, I, state your name.
I, Lucas Bruce,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments
and to the government
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially, and justly
impartially, and justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
as Special Police Officer Class 2
as Special Police Officer Class 2
for the Borough of Collingswood,
for the Borough of Collinsville,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Lucas, welcome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, okay. Our third officer is not being sworn in, he's headed to the academy, Ryan, so with the appointment, he'll be headed to the academy. We'll see him back here again soon. Okay, I'll move to the resolution.
Then we have a resolution appointing Robert M. Fox as a junior firefighter for the Collins Fire Department.
Yes. So we're going to swear in. Not that this makes you feel old, but I remember swearing in his father, who's ready to retire. Right?
Oh, now get this out.
What are you excited about? You guys come over. Put your left hand on the Bible. We're gonna give you, this is training as firefighters. Okay? They always mangle it, so you're gonna get this all once. Right once, okay? You never get it right. You'll be fine. I, and state your name,
I, Robert Fox,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to same
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to
and to the governments
and to the government
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in this state,
and in the state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties
all the duties
as a junior firefighter
as a junior firefighter
for the Borough of Collingswood,
for the Borough of Collingswood,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay. As we always do, thanks to all the men and women of the department for being here tonight. You are free to leave, do not be done. Okay? Although I know you may want to, you are free to leave. I'll go ahead.
Okay, resolution reappointing members to the Collinswood zoning board and search Pat Hogan.
Yes.
Resolution approving raffle licenses 2019-1 and 2 for Call It Forward and 2019-3 for the Collinswood Rotary.
Yes.
Approving an MOU between the borough, between Camden County and Collinswood Fire Department and Police Department for radios.
Yes.
Authorizing an increase to the emergency temporary budget appropriation for the 2019 municipal budget.
So this is simply at the start of the year before we've adopted a budget for 2019. The process is we adopt temporary budgets and we just keep amending them as we go along until we adopt the final. That's all this is doing. Yes.
Approving the grace period for taxes, water, and sewer payments to February 11th, 2019.
Yes.
Authorizing the release of the performance guarantee for 27 Cuthbert LLC to Block 59, Lot 6 and 601.
Yes.
Authorizing grant agreement with the DDRPC for the bicycle and pedestrian plan.
This is a grant that we're doing in connection with Haddon Township for studying potential connection of bicycle and pedestrian paths. It's tied in with Camden County's working on this project. We've gotten some funding for it. This is to do a study on where we might be able to do a path. And again, we're doing this with Haddon Township. Okay? Yes.
Authorizing a contract with ACOM for the planning services of the bicycle and pedestrian plan.
This is a company being hired to do the study that we got the grant money for. Yes.
Authorizing submittal of application for the year 2019 for the block grant.
This is money that we get every year. It's federal funds. A good portion of that money is used with this building for running this building, and it's kind of the standard, we do it every year. Yes.
Yes. Authorizing the acceptance of federal funds and participation in the Safe and Secure Communities Grant Program.
So this is getting in some free money from the federal government. It's generally used for vests, for hiring, paying for a portion of salaries of police officers and overtime for police officers.
Yes.
Designating of official newspaper for legal advertising to the Press of Atlantic City.
This is simply, the retrospect pointed out to us that we had approved the Philadelphia Inquirer for publication. There's been a recent case that because they don't print the paper here in Jersey, we can't use them as an alternate. So this is one of several publications that we can use for advertisements. Courier Post obviously is the most local, but we have to list 3, and this is one of the ones listed in the press. Yes.
Yes.
And approving the payment of bills as presented by the treasurer.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Woodowski?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of announcements. First of all, just to let folks know, the AARP taxing program has started. We'll be at the library on Fridays through April 12th. So what this program is, for those that don't know, it offers free, individualized tax preparation to low, moderate income taxpayers, especially those 50 years and older. So that program is going to run Fridays again, 12 to 4 at the public library. But it's important, signups begin on that day in person at 9:30. So it's a great service, especially with the new tax laws. I think there'll be a lot of questions. It's a great program that's out there, and I wanted to make sure. You can find more information about it on the library website. Another thing is, we usually think of the spring as pothole season, but given the record amount of rain that we received, the extreme swings of temperature, new potholes can surface. So as a reminder, you can report those online at collingswood.com or call Public Works, 856-858-0533. So it's maybe the new reality that becomes more of a 24 or a 12-month thing that we're doing. But please do report them. It does help us. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that U.S. Army Field Band is coming back to Collingswood. It's not often that they'll return to a small community like ours, but they'll be at the Scottish Rite Auditorium May 14th. Tickets, which are free, are on sale now. So I wanted to mention that. You can find a link online at
Yes, and if you have handicap needs, you should go to the Scottish Rite box office. They have all the handicap accessible ticketing there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all.
What?
So as we continue to work on many aspects of the police and fire building and looking at public works buildings, I just want you to know that all of the possible green initiatives that we can work into those plans are being looked at so that we can try to be the best that we can, not only serving our community through police, fire, emergencies, public works, but we're also looking for the future of the environment here and setting the best goals that we can to help regarding whether it's solar power or stormwater runoff situations. And as those things develop, I'll just let you know and keep you on top of that so that we can continue in those areas. And before you know it, it'll be spring for us. It will really be spring because tomorrow's going to be 60, so I think spring's coming. If you have a block that you think is in need of being chosen for our shade tree board to be looking at for planting trees to help your neighborhood, please let me know. We'll be glad to look at that and expand in our efforts on that or any sustainability issues that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, I just have one. There's a little fundraiser in a couple weeks on February 16th for in memory of Barbara Matouche, who ran our community center. It's February 16th at the Scottish Rite. Proceeds are going to, they're raising money for, Barbara had a nephew that needs long-term care, and so they're doing a fundraiser for that to help supplement that. So it's Barbara's family was big in the theater and our community theater, and together they're doing a little show on the 16th. Tickets are available at Borough Hall. I think the tickets that were online are gone, but there's tickets available at Borough Hall. Okay, we're open up to the floor. Anyone interested? Yep, Brad, give me your name and address for the record, please. No,
Oh,
that's
that's
not.
not, this is my
Just right
podium.
there.
This is my podium.
Just stand up, stand up.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Nardi. Chief, my name is Brad Ingerman, and I own and operate the lumberyard in Collinswood. I'll try and be as brief as possible. I never thought in a million years I'd be here talking about what I'm talking about, but I am. And as some of you remember, in 2011 and 2012, my company was asked by the then lender of the defaulted lumberyard to come in and possibly redevelop the project, which most of you know, on Haddon Avenue and backs onto the train station as well. It included 34 units of unfinished apartments, and then it included the office and apartment space that's now fronts Haddon Avenue. That's 70 apartments and about 13,500 feet of office space. And the town was understandably extraordinarily anxious to get this done because it was the centerpiece of a large redevelopment project, probably the largest they'd ever undertaken. And we were operating our offices right around the corner in Cherry Hill, and the owner of the bank that held the mortgage that was in default is a friend of mine, and he said, hey, let's see if you can make a deal between the town, the owner that's in default, and we did all that. And in the course of doing all that, it's not uncommon that developers of apartment buildings enter into what are called pilots. And a pilot is an acronym for a payment in lieu of tax. And essentially what it is, it's a way to provide a tax incentive for a developer to develop a project. And our particular tax incentive was for 25 years, and it essentially graduated every couple of years in terms of getting closer and closer to what full taxation would be on our project. And we have entered into probably 50 of those pilots in New Jersey. So I don't think I'm an expert. I think I'm as close to an expert as I could be in negotiating and reading pilots. In any event, fast forward approximately 2 months ago, because the market conditions were excellent and my firm was in the midst of developing probably about $100 million of new apartment projects, we decided that we would consider selling our project. And we hired a very reputable multifamily broker. We interviewed a lot of different people, and we narrowed down our final offers to 2 or 3 individuals. And we finally negotiated with and cut a deal with a firm called Merion Realty Partners. As soon as that happened, I shot an email to Mayor Maley, advising him that, while it's never done till it's done, because there was due diligence and things that had to happen, to ink the deal, to finally ink the deal. I wanted him to know right away what was going on, because that's kind of how I've operated over the last 30 years. And I introduced him to the buyers, and I was thinking to myself, hey, these guys are reputable. They've run many apartment jobs, and the only reason I even mentioned anything to the mayor was because in the pilot, there's very specific language, as there is in every pilot written in New Jersey, that basically says that on written application by the redevelopment entity, that's the owner, the borough will consent to a sale of the project and the assignment of the agreement, provided a couple of things occurred. Those things are very perfunctory. They require that a properly formed entity is in place, that the purchaser doesn't own another property which is subject to a pilot, which they don't, and that our obligations under the redevelopment law have been met, which they have. We've religiously filed everything and paid our taxes on time, as far as I know. So with that in mind, and knowing that there's a time sensitivity to this whole process, I let Marion, who's Representative Jeff Shoemaker's beside me, shoot an email to the mayor. He posed a couple of questions about how to formally get the approval. And basically, the only thing we had heard back was, what's the purchase price? And can I have some details about the buyer? And can you tell me the structure of the transaction, which we provided that information. And so, here we are, 2 months further into the transaction with a very, very time-sensitive agenda. And I just wanted to be sure that everybody on council was aware of the situation and to try and understand what the process is in getting an approval. I know as a fact that Collingswood Towers did have a transfer of a pilot not too long ago, and as far as I know, directly from the owner, it wasn't an issue. So I don't understand why there would be an issue here, and I'm just trying to get clarification on that.
Well, it's really unfortunate that you had to come to the meeting to do that, because you could have just asked. And the one misstatement one of the misstatements that you made is that I had made a request for 3 different pieces of information. I had requested the purchase price, the structure of the deal, and information on the new buyers. You said you provided all that. That's not true. The one piece of information that you refused to produce is the purchase price.
Correct.
Okay? In fact, we've been, okay, so what you
Yes,
just
you're
said
right.
is not true.
We didn't, you asked for the purchase price, we
The
didn't provide.
the only thing that we have asked for that you won't produce is the purchase price. And when I said, what's the big deal, because it'll be on the deed, okay? I was advised, well, no, it won't be what's on the deed. This structure is creating new entities. It's gonna have ownership transferred there. It won't difference between and what happened with the Parkview, where we did consent to the transfer, is when I asked the buyers, what's the purchase price for the property, they said $82 million, okay? And just since Mr. Ingerman has come to give everyone a lesson and make sure my colleagues know what's going on, because he obviously feels I don't advise them, but they do know what's going on, is this. When an entity gets a tax abatement, okay, when they're getting a break on what their taxes are, part of the policy trade for that is these entities are limited in the profits that they can make, okay? So the statements that Mr. Ingerman pointed to about that they file every year, or they have to show in the financial statement what their profits were, and that's reviewed by the borough, okay? And you make a determination if they have what's called excess profits. And if they make any excess profits, those excess profits are to be paid to the borough, okay? So the grand scheme is you get a tax break, a special kind of entity, they limit what their profits are, you have to show that you're not making over that. If you make over it, you have to pay it. Well, I believe as part of our due diligence, I asked the question, what are you making? Because if they're making $1 billion, there's excess profits that are due to the borough, okay? That's the information you've refused to provide. That's the information that, from what we've been told, makes us concerned about what this is, that there's an attempt to maybe circumvent some of that. And it can get fixed real easy, just with getting the answer to the question. And that's what I've told you when we've spoken on the phone about it. I believe it's what Mr. Nardi has told your attorney when he spoke with her Friday in response to a letter from her Wednesday. So that's where we are. Okay? So thank you for letting us know, let everybody know. That's what our dispute
So,
is.
so if I understand you correctly, first, is it the borough's position that if the sale is for $10 million or the sale is for $50 million, that figure would be calculated in determining excess profits under our pilot?
It's a factor, absolutely. For the urban renewal entities, yeah, you bet. You bet. It is. It gets factored in. That urban renewal entity, yeah, yes.
So the New Jersey statute, Jeff Shoemaker from Marion Realty Partners, the buyer in this transaction, obviously, and there's no attempt for any shady conduct or anything. Obviously, the recorded documents will be available for public record, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure Mr. Ingerman doesn't want to break a law by not filing his annual reports, which you get every year anyway. And if there were an excess profits, it would certainly be entitled to what the law says. But the New Jersey statute defines revenue as rental revenues, and furthermore, any gain realized by the urban renewal entity on the sale, whether or not taxable under federal or state law, shall not be included in computing gross revenue. Gross revenue is, the numerator minus expenses equals net profits.
And listen,
Gain
I'm
is
not,
not gross revenue.
I'm not gonna get into like a legal fight with you. I can tell you that we just finished going through this,
Okay.
okay? And it mattered.
So you're withholding the
Factory.
transfer approval.
We're doing our due diligence. We got a written request on Wednesday. And we had contact with your attorneys on Friday,
Okay.
okay?
So I
So-
also want to clarify that while I acknowledge Mayor Neely asked for the price, what I told him at that time was that there was a confidentiality aspect of our purchase and sale agreement that did not allow me, without consent with the buyer and the seller, to release that information. And I did say, however, I don't understand, could somebody explain to me why the purchase price is even relevant? Because it doesn't factor into calculating the pilot. And we never got that answer. But again, if like I said, I thought this was gonna be the easiest part of the transaction. We did what we said we were gonna do. We built this fabulous building. We've been great neighbors. We'll continue to be great neighbors. If I didn't sell it, but I refinanced it, and hypothetically, I took out 500,000 or 5 million or 50 million, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I don't understand why, under the terms of the pilot, it should really be any different, and the law doesn't contemplate it to be any different. So I guess my question is, and the question that Mr. Shoemaker has on behalf of the buyer, is what is it that we can expect so that they don't waste any more time with their lawyers and their due diligence, et cetera, in terms of knowing what is necessary to get the pilot approved? Or
We'll go over
disapproved?
it with our attorneys. I usually negotiate.
Oh, I understand, okay, all right,
Oh,
so.
you do? Really? We're negotiating?
No, I know, I just asked the timing on when you thought that we might know.
We'll talk to Joe tonight. We don't meet again for a month.
Right, that was my
We don't meet again
concern.
for a month.
Right,
So the decision would take place at a subsequent meeting,
It would have to be a meeting. We have to give a resolution and consent.
so we have at least a month.
Has to be another month.
okay, thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thanks. Anyone else? Anybody else buying a house for me or anything? You want to talk about it? Go ahead, Jen. Name and address.
Ben Rossi, 114 East Conroe Avenue. My daughter actually first
Just give us your name for the record.
Iris Rossi.
Okay.
Playgrounds need to be safer.
Okay.
Yes, she's a part of Girl Scouts working on Good Neighbor Badge, and we have an interest in a park and other parks where the children play. So I just wanted to get some clarification on who I could talk to in the borough to get more information from, the equipment that was recently installed at Roberts, Park Pool. There was a piece of equipment there that's been causing some injuries, so I want to be able to put a report in, Consumer Safety Commission. So to do that, I need the name and model number of the equipment, and RVE hasn't been forthcoming with that.
You can contact Keith, you can try to find out.
I believe that this was the equipment that was removed from Robertsville.
There's equipment removed, okay, I wasn't aware that, it was removed, but I'll be in touch.
No, just talk to me. What was it?
It was it's called a wingline bench, it's a large metal bench,
Okay.
and apparently it gets so much movement, that it would actually cause severe injuries, there was like a broken finger.
That was the one that was in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to see if there could be a recall or something issued on that piece of equipment, so it's not a problem in other cities.
Yeah, you can always just email me or Keith, and just,
Yeah, I'll chase you down, because I do want to get that reported.
sure,
Alright, thank you.
you bet. Yes,
My name is Kathleen Shea Hargood. I'm speaking on behalf of my husband and myself. We live at 610 Lees Avenue. And since tonight, we apparently came in late, for which I apologize, but you're having your second reading of the ordinance having to do with the police and fire.
Yeah.
So I have a statement on our behalf. Who in their right mind retires to New Jersey? No one, given our horrendous taxes. No one, that is, except those of us who have native-born spouses, children, and grandchildren living here in New Jersey. The reason for our awful taxes, especially property taxes, is well known. It is our own Jersey insistence on having our own tiny towns replete with their own staggeringly expensive schools, police, and fire, among other governmental amenities. Collingswood, 2 square mile Collingswood, has 31 full-time police employees and 17 full-time firefighters, up according to its own fire chief quoted in this week's retrospect newspaper, and to my mind, astonishing 15 employees since 1996. Do not misunderstand me, I begrudge no one a job or a decent workplace. I do, however, have concerns about how we, the already stretched to and beyond the limit taxpayers of Collingswood, are going to most likely, as far as I can see, foot the bill for $19.5 million in municipal bonds to be issued by this town's elected officials for a new public safety complex, which is to say a new fire and police quarters. I have a question about how taxpayers who might have thought that schools or perhaps debt retirement might work for the greatest public good might have set different priorities if we had had the chance to have our say on this matter. Municipal investors want return on their investment. That return is promised on the local government's taxing authority, which means, it seems to me, the inevitable result will be higher real estate taxes, with no opportunity in this instance for the already overtaxed to vote their wishes on this matter. Thank you for listening.
sure.
Thank you.
I'll just address it this way. We've had a bunch of meetings about police and fire and talked about how we'll pay for it. And the analogy I have given is that over the next few years, we have substantial amounts of debt that will be coming off the books, okay? In the last 10 years, we have done a very aggressive payment of our debt with the eye toward not perhaps retiring it, okay? But also because we knew we had other needs, okay? Other infrastructure needs. So we've been very aggressively paying it down. So in the next, this year, and my analogy is a car payment, okay? This year, debt service that we have of about $760,000 will be coming off the books. We will be retiring that debt, okay? And over the next 5 years, another $700,000 of debt will be retired, okay? $700,000 debt service payments. What is in our budget to pay the debt, our mortgage payments in essence, okay? So the plan with police and fire is that we will, while we have this bond on the books that we've adopted tonight, we have other bonds that are retiring. And so the net impact to our taxpayer, we don't think you're going to see an increase in this. We don't expect any increase to come about because of the police and fire station. That's the way we've structured it. That's the way we've worked on it. That's the way we have told people at all these meetings about police and fire, we intend to have this be paid for. That's what the plan is. So this is not that we're doing, $20 million of bonds and taxes are going up $400 to pay for that, all right? We have debt that's coming off the books over the next few years, and we will be able to do this in a way that it slides in to that debt and at no additional cost to the taxpayers. Okay? That's what the plan is.
So I can read that as a promise pretty much that there will be no property
Well,
tax.
I'll never ever promise that there'll never be a property tax increase, okay?
In
but
this regard,
there's
for this
no-
project.
There's not gonna be any substantial tax increase because of debt service.
But substantial is obviously a subjective term.
Yeah, it's,
For us, another $1 a year is too much.
yeah, well, I can't tell you it's not gonna be another $1 a year. I can tell you it's not gonna be another $150, $100, $200 to pay for the police and fire station. Absolutely not, okay?
But it would reasonably, in your mind, be $25?
I'm hoping it's not any. I don't expect it to be any. Because, so that's one track, okay? The other is that we're working to reduce the cost. What we did, we said this when we introduced this ordinance, this bond ordinance, one of the reasons we're doing it now is because we probably won't need the money till later in the year, is because we need to get into the queue for something called the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank, okay? Which provides 0% loans for infrastructure work, which there's going to be a lot of infrastructure work with this. So that's a way to, while we're working to reduce the cost of the building, we're also taking steps to reduce the cost of any financing, okay? And between all of those, we also have control over our debt. Whatever we spend on this project, we have time before we have to, in essence, put that debt, the actual payments on the books, okay? We can go for a few years with paying interest only, okay? So that we've got time to slide in those payments as other debt is retired. So what I'm saying to you is, yes, I expect it will be minimal, if any. Is it? It's certainly going to be less than $100. I don't think it's going to be anything at all. Okay? I don't think we're going to have anything at all.
So if for the sake of argument, let's say you guys do your back of the napkin or whatever it is, and you come up with, let's say, $50, does the public have any say in this at all?
No, this is just say you have say this way. There's no vote. There's not a vote on it. There's not a vote on it. Okay? But that's the way all of our bonds go. That's the way they all go. Okay? All right? So that's my response. Okay. What else? Yes? Yeah, just name it.
Yep, Fiona Dawson, 841 Baker Avenue. Curious to hear the ongoing efforts to have an ordinance for short-term rentals. Is there movement on this?
Yeah, so all I could say, and I should point out, I think when we talked maybe 2 months ago, I felt confident of a January resolution. When I say resolution, I mean formal, because it's an ordinance, not a resolution. But I think in some ways I was naive or optimistic. We continue to work on it and, making progress, but, obviously there's nothing on the agenda, so it's not there.
Okay, so it's great that you are moving forward and discussing it. Where can I find the meeting minutes from executive sessions in which this was discussed?
Sort of, we talk about it individually. I
There
called
hasn't
him
been
on
any-
my way to work and.
There haven't been any closed sessions. We haven't had any closed sessions.
Have you had open sessions?
Here, yeah.
I don't
I tell you what, you get a chance in just 1 second, okay? Fiona,
Have there been open sessions?
you have the floor. You have the floor.
Have there been open sessions?
Just in our discussions here. That's it.
So.
I have spoken with Rob.
Yes?
I have spoken with Joan. Joan has spoken with Rob. We've all spoken with our attorney.
Mostly to the attorney.
I'm sorry?
Mostly to the attorney.
So no we would know nothing about your decision-making process, the information gathered.
Not even with two of you are present at forum?
I tell you what, let's let Fiona, and then you'll be more than happy to recognize you.
Yes, well, is there any time where there
No,
are two
listen.
people in a forum
There's
having a
always,
discussion
when, in this
that
form
would
of
require meeting notes?
in this form of government, whenever I speak to any one of them, it would have to be, under that interpretation, it would have to be an official public meeting, okay? Except there's exceptions also, I'll just note, for party caucuses, okay? You're allowed to do like the legislature does, party caucuses, where all the legislators get together and talk about whatever they want in secret, okay? So to apply, we've never applied that rationale to our discussions here. Because to do that would mean that we could never, ever talk to each other about anything, if you take that kind of interpretation. And we just never have.
In over 110 years, I gather.
Well, no, since the law's been in effect,
Okay.
okay? Sir?
Tom Peters, I live in Eldridge Avenue. So this Airbnb temporary residence ordinance or whatever is going to be passed, the last meeting I attended, there was discussion about it and said, the three of you would sit and discuss it, and it seemed like there was going to be no input from the community. Is that the case? That we have no way, we have to call Joan or you or Ron to voice our opinions or our concerns?
Well, I think what we thought is that once we got a draft of an ordinance, once we had something that we thought would be introduced, that we would get, I think a few people have asked. And we thought that we got a draft of an ordinance, something that we were prepared to introduce, we would get it out to folks. Obviously, a lot of people here tonight are interested in it.
So
And I've had others as well contact us that may not be as happy to see it, who would like to comment on it. So once we get an ordinance, we would circulate it. And even if we were to come one night and just introduce it, there's still opportunity then for people to talk when we change ordinances in.
So there'll be a public forum to discuss what the proposal is that the three of you come up with, or including the attorney.
Well, even if it's done the normal way, it gets introduced here and doesn't get adopted for 30 days.
Okay, but there's opportunity for public comment on that.
During that time, sure, absolutely. But I think for this, because there's been so much interest in it, once we get one, that we'll get it out to people that have expressed an interest and let them see it ahead of time.
So why do you think the initial amount to get this, like an ordinance?
I'll give you my own 2 cents. It's crazy complicated.
Yeah.
Okay? Crazy complicated. We've collected, we've got a draft of one that Joe's done, that I've been working through, and it is crazy complicated, okay? The other ordinances that are out there, the samples we have from other towns, and the regulations that some towns do, some towns are more intense, the options, how you can do it, it just ain't that simple, okay?
And I'll just,
And
I'll just add, like, because it's not a standalone, it has to fold into everything, so it has to coincide with all your legacy ordinance and everything else, and sometimes a word can change the meaning of 20 things, so now we gotta spend time on a word, and so, yeah, for me as well, I mean, it's just, we've talked, and I appreciated your feedback, everyone's feedback really, on all sides, and I've sort of listed bullets and said, yeah, I'm hoping we hit this and this. But then when the rubber meets the road, you gotta put it in there. Yeah, it was absolutely more complicated than I anticipated.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume it these.
No, I didn't either,
Yeah,
but it just,
we hear nothing from the council, so I
you
have
know
no
what?
idea what progress is
Every
being
meeting
made.
it's brought up
We
and I
discussed
bring
it
it
every
up.
meeting.
Yeah.
We discussed it
I
every
can't
meeting.
think of it, unfortunately.
I know, but that's what we're doing,
Yes.
You can always reach out. I think all of us are always
Do
available.
you publish the minutes of the meeting anywhere?
Yeah, it takes a couple months before, so the minutes, it takes a couple minutes, but the meetings get, when the minutes are prepared, they have to get back to me. So it takes a couple months before they go up, but yeah.
But then the opportunity to just address an issue is gone if you've already voted on
Well, with something like this, it'll get introduced and we're gonna take an extra step of making sure that it gets out to people that are interested.
Okay.
An introduction still means 30 days at minimum for us to ever be. So that's gonna give time for everyone to look, give feedback, and come that day, any time, in the interim.
Yeah, I've got a couple emails from people that don't want it at all.
Sure.
And so when we I've asked, when when you get something together, could you send me a draft that we could look at? So it would be whatever we're prepared to introduce, which we may, we'll get that out to whoever's interested.
How do we get on that list?
Well, I think I'll get it to Jen and to Kate, because they're obviously been interested in it. And
Sure,
so
it'll go
I'm sure,
online as well.
I'm guessing they might publish that somewhere or circulate that out. Just a guess. Just a guess.
Also talking about the financing, the bond issue.
Uh-huh.
Now, you talked about making interest payments as an interim thing. It seems to me like that's what part of the housing crisis we had a decade ago was that people were getting interest-only loans and paying no principal. So why would we borrow money and just pay interest?
Well, there's a couple of different layers, okay?
Okay.
One is, that, like for this, one of the reasons why we're doing this now is again, to save cost of borrow, because in March of this year, we have what's called a rollover of notes, okay? So the borough has two different forms of debt vehicles. One is permanent financing. Think of it this way, like your mortgage on the house, okay? But then we also have interim financing. Think of it more like your construction loan. You're gonna do work on the house, you go, you borrow some money, you go put the addition on, and then when you're all done that, and you spent the money, then you might roll that into a mortgage on your property long term, okay? So we have short-term debt. We have we have some short-term debt that will be coming off the books shortly. We kept it short-term and didn't put it into permanent financing, which is a longer-term mortgage, because we've been doing this aggressive debt reduction, okay? And felt that within a few years, we could knock those numbers out.
So you're talking
Rather than-
24 million.
Rather than put it into a 30 year that you can't, for most of these, you can't prepay. It's not like your mortgage that you pay it off. Bondholders buy these at that low rate because they want to get interest for the next 25 years, okay? So the reason you would do it for this is number one, we're gonna probably, 19 is what the authorization is. We'll probably actually borrow only like 6 million over the next 12 to 18 months. Okay? Because that's what the construction schedule will need. Okay? And we don't want to go out several times for that because there are costs for the borrowing. And when we roll the notes over in March, we'll borrow that money because it costs us the same amount of money whether we borrow $5 or whether we borrow $100,000.
Yeah, I understand origination fees.
So we roll it into that. So one reason is you don't want to go to permanent until you're done the project, okay? And our hope is that we'll be able to knock off some of that debt just in our regular budget process, okay? This, for example, this year, in 2018, our budget had $1 million, okay, that we put at roads, to do roads. We don't do that every year. We did that because we had accumulated some surplus, and so we put it into infrastructure, again, in the roads. But we're accumulating some surplus, and so we may be able to take that, knock that short-term debt down, pay it off, never have to go to a permanent finance, okay? And the other, so it's when you need the money, and the other is when do you and how do you borrow the money so as to minimize the impact on taxpayers, okay? You could go borrow 19 million today, everybody has a big tax bill, boom. Or you could stage it and let it go over some time and borrow it so that you slot it in your overall debt structure so you don't have any impact on taxpayers. Okay? It's all built into the system.
Well, it still has an impact on taxpayers.
It does. Oh, no, we could definitely
If we're
reduce.
paying the debt down, you know, as a consumer, not as a government agency, obviously, and as a business person, when I pay down debt, that's extra money I have. That reduced my cost of doing business, and that obviously would be reduce the cost of running the borough if we pay down debt and don't assume more debt.
You're absolutely right.
But, so we're paying down debt to assume more debt.
Right,
So
so,
that's.
right,
and
so
I just don't.
it only makes sense.
I'd like to finish my point if possible. So I don't know what the 19.5 million is buying me. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the building, whatever we're building, fire, police.
Police and fire and a public works building.
Okay, so we're building that, and I don't know why we can't rehab what we have at a lower cost. If we seem to have enough land by the police station to expand or raise up,
Okay, so we've had a bunch of meetings about this.
yeah.
Okay, going over all of this, all right? We need, so I get as a businessman, I pay down the debt, I don't take in more debt, that's more money for me, we could absolutely do that, okay? We need a police and fire station and a public works, okay? So you just need to, you can't rehab these to do what's necessary. We have workforces now that have men and women, okay? We violate umpteen rules on each of the buildings. If you had been to those other meetings, we gave tours. I can tell you that of the people that went, there's nobody that did those tours and came back and said, you know, I don't see where you really need one, okay? We need them, okay? So yes, we could get rid of that debt and we could just take the savings, okay? But we need a police and fire building. We could have taken the $1 million and given it back to everybody. You okay with the potholes? You okay with the potholes? Yeah, I know. That's no, we gotta like keep the house going too. We gotta fix it.
I'm sorry to ask something that you probably have gone over too, is the police and fire properties, what are we doing with those?
Police,
Yeah, go ahead.
police will be knocked down, and it'll be demolished.
And that'll be just surface lot parking?
In the interim.
For now.
In the interim. And then we do not own the fire station.
That's
It's
owned by the
owned
fire.
by the volunteers.
Yeah, okay.
So we don't have it's not our call.
And I recall we were gonna be a transit village at one point.
We are. We
Okay.
are a transit.
Okay, so, and there was talk of building a parking deck. Is that
Yes.
ever happening, or?
Who knows? We'll see. Need something. It all depends on like what the market can do. Is there a developer that would be interested in coming and doing something like that? Yeah, all that's possibilities. Where we're focusing right now is build a new police and fire, build public works, get that working, clear these buildings out. It'll be surface in the short term, okay? And it'll be, I shouldn't say short term. It'll be parking when that's gone, and then we start figuring out what comes next. Do I have any plan or develop or anybody? No.
Okay, well, this is a long time ago, this is like 15 years.
Yes, yes.
And what do we pay on the bonds? What's our rate?
It'll be between, say, 3.5 to 3.8 right now, is what it'll be. Right, if interest rates stay kind of where they are.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Next time. Yes.
Stephen Piafadio, 428 West Browning Road. And I'm sure you probably considered this is regarding the Airbnbs, but I just had just something to think about because the Airbnb in essence is kind of similar to a boarding house, kind of people coming in and out. As far as is there going to be any having children, just thinking about sex offenders and things like that. I own some rental properties in town, and I vet my tenants. They do a background check, credit check, all that. So I just like temporary housing. I was just curious if that is a consideration to, like I said, something like sex offender.
I don't know that there's like criminal background checks or anything, none of the stuff I've seen. There would be a process, like I think there's gonna be a process that there's like a registration of who's who's in the house. Like part, for a very simple reason, the chief's not here tonight, but for fire, like a very simple reason is give fire guy, if there's a fire, give them some chance when they get to the house, that they have a way to check about how many people are here, who's here. Especially when it's a family, they don't know how many people are in the family, but when it's a family, somebody that's there from the family knows how many people are there. And with it being unrelated people, that just raises another different level of how do we confirm that? How do we know that? So I don't know, but I haven't seen any background checks or anything like that.
I didn't anticipate that as part of the process.
But we have, I mean, we've seen, we've been concerned, no, I know, but we've seen it but the difference is we've seen advertisements where, you know, the person's saying, you know, yeah, if you come these weekends, my 5-year-old is here in the house with me. Which we were like, well, why would you be saying that in an ad and inviting people, like, but we've seen that. But no, I haven't seen background checks in any of them. Okay, anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
So my first is about the town debt level. So it was noted in the retrospect that after passing this bond, the town debt level will be 3.4%, which is just below the state cap of 3.5. And I was wondering how that debt level compares to neighboring towns.
We're probably more. The retrospect's not exactly accurate, okay? Because every year, with especially the last 6 or 7, when we've been on this aggressive schedule, more frees up, okay? So like this year, I think it's like 4 million comes off the books, okay? So it'll put us, it won't even put us up, we drop down some more, okay? We had more rateables come on, okay? So as the town's assessed value goes up, that affects what your debt limit is, okay? Because it's a percentage of what your total rateables are in the town, right? So there's variables that changes all the time. Not worried about that. Even if you're near your limit, you're allowed to go to the state board, the local finance board, and ask to do a borrowing that goes beyond your limit.
Can the town do that often?
Yeah, fair amount, okay, fair amount. And for us, with the police and fire, and even more than that is because we have properties that are exempt, pilots, right? We have other value in town that is producing revenue that's not reflected in our total assessed value. Okay? So if the property was worth $100 million, that really is $100 million that gets added onto your assessed value, if it was taxable, that your debt limit is based on. Okay? So our FA, when we were looking at this, you know, when we started all this, she had no concerns that we would be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, my next one, unless you want to take somebody else. Okay, this is a comment from a friend who's not able to be here tonight. So this is Joe Russell, his address is 932 Maple Avenue. And he writes, good evening, commissioners. I hear there's discussion about the commission having public working sessions and wanted to voice my support for that. Residents would love to hear your deliberation and reasoning for the decisions you take that affect our lives. It would very much help to bolster faith in our elected leaders.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, and then this one is me. When asked about how our commissioners make their decisions on matters that impact the community members have been repeatedly told that there are no meetings held to make decisions. Since it seems implausible that this is truly the case, I wanted to share what I feel is a particularly important section of the Open Public Meetings Act that declares that the right of the public to be present at all meetings of public bodies and to witness in full detail all phases of the deliberation, policy formation, decision-making of public bodies is vital to the enhancement and proper functioning of the democratic process, that secrecy in public affairs undermines the faith of the public in government and the public's effectiveness in fulfilling its role in a democratic society. The Collingswood community is entitled to this type of transparency.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Yes.
Barbara Thomas, 912 Eldridge. And I have a comment and a question, and you don't have to comment on the comment unless you want to. But like 7 months ago, when we were talking about the Airbnb thing, several people here suggested we're willing to form a committee to work on it. But that was dismissed. Okay, so I just want to say, and it's kind of a long time ago since this has been going on. And I have been in Airbnbs recently in some pretty podunk towns, and they were really nice and great experience. Anyway, yeah, I go to podunk towns. But my question is, in light of the Camden County recycling problem, not problem, but that they're only taking 1 and 2 plastics, I don't know if everyone knows that. And that I would guess that 1 and 2s are not far behind in not being able to recycle, but that's not my point. My point is, could you guys be willing to eliminate the use of those plastic cups on your table? Because this is a beautiful state, we're so close to the ocean. Some of them will end up in Newton Creek, some of them are gonna end up in the Cooper River, and some of them are gonna possibly end up in the Atlantic Ocean. And I think in addition to that, I think it's bad modeling. I mean, I think that I love seeing, Rob, I love seeing your
Don't touch my
reusable
swell.
water bottle. So it's like,
A lot of money.
purchase 5
Cage net.
glasses to set on the table, and then, somebody, I bet you, I would wash them for you, afterwards.
You don't have to make a big speech about this, I'm with you. As soon as you
Okay.
said it, like, I don't know how
Yeah.
it just shows up.
And a lot of things like that, it's
Just-
really,
it's fine.
it's more important than
I don't use any plastic, this shows up here so we don't die up here. We just have,
Yeah, but if you come in with your own bottle.
Yeah, I can, really, we don't, in my office, when someone wants a glass of water, we go to my home, get it, and then I
Yeah,
wash
that's
it right
great.
back. But
Yeah.
this is, we have,
I mean,
this is washable.
I
This
think
is-
about, there's a
See,
no, but that's
but
like, I think
this is all washable, this is the only thing.
I think
So
there's
that
a
sounds fine.
a child in the room. And for a child to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plastic cups that are gonna be trashed. So I'm just saying, not trying to be, I'm just saying, please, get rid of it.
Yeah, no, thanks for raising the awareness about that.
Thank you.
I keep thinking about straws and I didn't
Yeah,
notice that one here, but really in the other aspects of our lives, we are not using plastic water bottles or anything like that with us. Everybody I know is doing it right now, today.
It's going in our bodies of water, for sure, a lot of it is.
Anyone else? Yes?
Joan Bueller from The Retrospect. So what I wanted to say was the story that was in Friday was my story. I got the supplemental debt statement from Benny Joe. I got the information about the 3.417 debt ratio from this statement. So there may be other things that I was unaware of, like you just explained, but they were not explained to me by Benny Joe, the CFO. So
I don't-
on the record, would like to say that that information came.
So.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Is it okay with you if I give you this to people? Do I need to sign it?